Okay, so I am opening up this presentation with a question, but I'm going to start first by asking you guys some other questions. This part's interactive, so get excited. Okay, how many of you guys have heard of the third impact from a show? Yeah, okay, we got one person. Neon Genesis Evangelion, great show. Okay, what about The Rapture? This is from a book. I've heard it's really good. I don't know. I've only read parts of it. Okay, what about AGI? Everyone here should raise their hand. Come on, guys. If you don't know about AGI, what are you doing here? Okay, well, some people. And all of these things are these incredible events in human history where something has happened and reality has fallen in on itself and nothing is as it has ever been before or will ever be again. So I am here to talk about not any of these events, but something equally as momentous as reality warping, and that is, what do you guys think? Vibe coding. Okay, it's crazy now, right? Everyone can code. And some people really don't like this new reality. Some people really do. But regardless of how you feel, things are very different now than they used to be. So my talk is going to be about how this new vibe coding reality is changing the way that designers work, engineers and designers work together, and how it's going to impact the future of design. And I'm going to put it in 5 nicely organized parts. Okay, guys, you ready? I'm trying here. Okay, so before I get into all of this, let's step back a minute and talk about who am I? Why am I on this stage? Why am I talking about this? Why should you guys listen to anything I have to say on this subject? So hi, I'm Mayan. Please don't ask me how to pronounce my name. We don't have time. I'm a software engineer at Browserbase. But before that, way in the past, I was a student. I was a design student at Carnegie Mellon. And yeah, Carnegie! And because I came from this background in design, my first exposure to coding was not about code quality or reproducibility or durability. It was about play. Does this look familiar to any of you guys, P5JS? This is how I started out using code. And me and my friends, we just spent all of our time building cool stuff. And I became so obsessed with this concept of code for play that I wrote my thesis on it. I built a whole IDE for P5 so that creative coders could have an easier time building art. So we're going to take this idea of code for play, we're going to put a pin in it, and now we're going to go all the way back to the present day, to our vibe coding reality, to part 2, everyone can code now. Subtitle, why did I spend the past 8 years learning to code? We also don't have time to get into that. But I want to talk about how we started out with engineers being the top dogs in the office, right? They were mogging everyone because they were the only ones who knew how to code. But now we have vibe coding. And now all of a sudden, there's a sales manager that's starting automating his own workflows, or her, and a customer engineer that has built a chatbot that's answering everyone's questions, or an intern that has no years of experience and yet has already authored 12 projects. And it just goes on, right? The PM making pull requests, the CEO that has ideas that he's just shipping straight to the code base, the head of growth, everyone. So now the engineers have officially been mogged. And there are more guys, don't worry. The engineers have been mogged. So what does that mean for designers? So the relationship between design and engineering has traditionally been kind of like a tug-of-rope game, where this flag you see over here, this is the product. So a designer will ask something like, everything needs corner smoothing, And then the engineer will say that's actually a lot of work. And then the PM will be like, we don't have time for any of this. We need to ship the product on Friday. But now, with vibe coding, designers can just build their own designs. All of these problems are solved, right? Everything can get shipped. There will be no regressions. All of the tests are passing. Customers are happy, right? Right? So this brings me to part 3, which is that coding is not the same thing as engineering. So a really interesting concept that I was introduced to was this idea of code as a material, right? It's just letters and numbers that we're giving to a computer to tell it what we want it to do. It's a material in the same way that something like wood is a material to start fire or build a house. And then I think it's helpful to think of software engineering as the act of building with code. So if code is the wood, then software engineering is this process of building a house. I don't think most of us look as cool as this guy building a house when we're software engineering, but the energy is there. So saying that coding is the same thing as engineering is like saying that woodworking is the same thing as building a house. Now, it's still tempting to squint at a designer that has access to Claude code and see a front-end engineer. I know you guys have done this. The problem with that is that when you squint really hard, and then you actually open your eyes, you have an enormous vibe-coded slop worth of PR that you can't even read. No one can read. You have to redo it all anyways. And this is causing issues for designers too. I've heard a lot of designers say that this expectation to constantly ship has stifled their creativity. Because it's really hard to dream and imagine and pontificate when your whole life is measured in pull requests. It's hard for me to do that, and I'm an engineer. Okay, so even in this current period of vibe coding, we still need to hold separate space for design and engineering. And the reason, oh, come on, guys. No one recognizes this? Okay. Holding space. I recognize a lot of my memes are like girly pop memes, but just laugh for me. Okay, so the reason that we have to hold separate space is because these like design and engineering, they're not roles. Like you can point to someone and be like, they're an engineer and they're a designer, and now everyone wants to do everything, and that's great. But they're still separate practices. So I kind of tricked you with the question at the beginning, right? I asked, can designers code? And I think the answer is like, yes, kind of, maybe. I don't really care. It's not interesting. The real question is, how can designers use code to design? This brings me to my next part, the era of prototypes. I'll go slow with this so you can see the joke. Okay, so we have this question, right? How can we use code to design? And I think the answer is prototypes. I think we're about to enter into this beautiful era of a union between designers and prototypes where we can use them a lot more. So the question is why? So traditionally, designers have done a lot of drawing, and that started out with pen and paper, and now we use tools like Figma to show our ideas. The issue is that there's a huge gap between drawn wireframes and the actual working product. But if you look at code as a material, and you have these interactive prototypes that are made in Next, and they're made with Tailwind, they're not going to be exactly the same, but it's a lot closer than the actual working product, than the initial drawings. So now you have these crazy slop vibe-coded PR, and it's really bad when you have to put that in prod. But if you have that PR that's just being used as a fun little prototype, then it's great. Then vibe-coded code is actually really helpful. So in this era of prototypes, we are going to use design as this great, or we're going to use code as this great material for design. And I hope that we'll see a lot of prototypes that are ephemeral and for play. Okay, so now we are approaching the final part, which is the moral of this story. So just to summarize a bit where we've been so far, we have all ascended. We're all vibe coding now. We need to hold separate space for both design and engineering. We are using code as a design material to make prototypes. Okay, that's all cool, but like, so what? Why am I up here talking to you guys about all of this today? Okay, so okay, so I talked about the third impact, right? Humans love this idea of an apocalypse, right? There's a great Marvel movie about this. It's called Ragnarok. But we love this idea that something is going to happen and it will be the end of time and everything will be different. I think that's why everyone loves this idea of AGI. There are a couple other reasons, but in my mind. But throughout this whole process, we're afraid that design is going to disappear. I want us to remember that design is actually very old. Please don't crucify me for using papyrus. I promise there's a good reason for it that you will see later. But design is very old, right? It existed before ChatGPT. It existed before this guy and his little computer. It existed before the Bauhaus. The term design actually originated during the Renaissance. This guy, Giorgio Vasari, he came up with it. And he defined it as the act of intellectual conception. Okay, guys, think about that for a minute. The act of intellectual conception. So do you think that when they started building the pyramids, they just started putting rocks down? No. There was some guy who went to the pharaoh and he pitched to him, hey, I have this great idea for a pyramid. You're going to be inside of it. It's going to be a big rectangle. There's going to be all these little hidden hallways, right? Design is really old. And this act of intellectual conception is something that goes beyond time to just a part of human nature and how we create things, right? In order to create, you need to design first. So I don't think design is going anywhere. It will definitely evolve, but these ideas of empathizing with the user, defining a problem, ideating on different solutions, creating a prototype, and testing, right? That's not going anywhere. So, if you're a designer or you're interested in the practice of design, I urge you in this vibe coding moment, do not forget your craft. You should definitely upload. You should definitely. What's the name of for when the Pokemon evolve? It's just evolve? Okay, you should definitely evolve it, and you should prototype, and you should use design as code, but don't forget about it. Because even in this magical, beautiful, terrifying, horrible age of AGI, when it hits us, we will still need design. Okay, so in the spirit of that guy with the funny little computer, I have one more thing. Okay, so something that I have seen really lacking in the space of these incredible new design tools that are coming out so far is this idea of iteration, right? It still exists in a lot of Canvas-based products. This is Variant. Shout out to Variant. Oh yeah, little computer. But when it comes to prototyping tools, I haven't seen a lot of good opportunities to iterate and try out different options. And I definitely haven't seen this in like Cursor or any traditional environment. So I have a present for you guys. Yay. Everyone loves presents. So I made something, an NPM package, where instead of having to go into a canvas to try out a bunch of options, or doing that weird thing where you ask you ask Cursor to like make you a new route and then put all this stuff in that route so you can see it. It's really sad. I don't like it. Now you can just toggle your versions in line. Okay, so if you guys are interested, you can download this from NPM. There's also a website. I got a .com domain, which is crazy. I have shamelessly ripped off Benji's name, but I'm doing it for like brand recognition. So